guys? It's your boy Luke here for our Saturday slate Draftkings NFL picks. Since we're here at week 18 in the NFL season, no Thursday night football tonight, but fortunately have a really nice Saturday slate to try and go ahead and take down. On top of that, we've got a Millie Maker contest on Draftkings, tons of GPPs to try and take down, some large cash contests, pretty much everything we'd be looking for, so it should be a fun one to break down. Here in this video, we're going to go through my projections, some ownership numbers, as well as some game theory for the slate. And because it's not a showdown slate, we're not dealing with captains, kickers, anything like that. A little bit more of a traditional NFL type of DFS. The kind of slates that I like the most, especially when we have such a condensed player pool. We're going to have to be willing to take some of these shots on some of these lower usage players that might go out there and catch a big touchdown, that kind of thing. So with that being said, let's hop right into it with our projections here for Saturday. On the screen here, you guys can see our projections for Saturday. Of course, we have the Chiefs at the Broncos and the Cowboys at the Eagles. The Chiefs-Broncos game has a relatively large spread at 11.5 points, but that Cowboys-Eagles game still relatively close at right around a 4.5 point spread. I've seen it at a 3.5 at some books, but overall, definitely the more competitive of the two games. But even with that in mind, I'm not going to be avoiding this Kansas City offense. They just have too much to play for. Of course, if they win and the Titans lose, they would overtake the #1 seed in the AFC. And of course, if they lose this game, could end up being the 3 or even 4 seed in the AFC. So a lot to play for there. On the other game with the Cowboys and the Eagles, both teams plenty to play for. Similar story with the Cowboys with their seeding. Can't get up to the #1 seed. That has already been clinched by the Packers up there in Green Bay. But at the same time, still want to hold on to their positioning there. And with the Eagles, they need to win and get into the playoffs. So a lot on the line for this Saturday slate. And because we don't have anybody who's mathematically eliminated, I'm not 100% sure about the Broncos. I believe they are mathematically eliminated unless there's a tie, something of the sorts there. You're still going to see every team play hard. So the only team that I'm not bullish on here is going to be the Broncos, just because they're going to have Drew Lock at quarterback. We've seen how that's worked out over the last few weeks, but taking a few singular shots on the Broncos as a buyback for some of these Chiefs stacks could definitely make a lot of sense. Let's go position by position, though, through these projections. At the quarterback position, the main two guys I am prioritizing are going to be the chalk, unfortunately. So that's going to be Dak Prescott and Patrick Mahomes. Both of them have to win their games this week to go out and get their positioning. So we just went through that. Even though if they get ahead, they might go to a more of a rush-heavy attack, there's going to be no question that if they get a large lead, it's because of these quarterbacks' ability. So like stacking up both of these offenses, whether it's a Tyreek Hill with the Patrick Mahomes, a Mecole Hardman, Byron Pringle, or with Dak Prescott going to an Amari Cooper, a Dalton Schultz going to a CeeDee Lamb, all of those guys are elite tier options and not going to be a surprise in my pool. Where we're going to have to differentiate with some of those lineups is because they're kind of pricey, especially some of those Chiefs stacks. Going to have to go ahead and take some of those low-owned options at wide receiver on some of these lower-end teams. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But at quarterback, definitely centering a lot of my ownership on these two. Jalen Hurts, always worth a few shots because of his rushing type of upside. And even though we haven't seen that over the last 2 or 3 weeks, he's been dealing with that ankle injury. He's more than capable of scoring a touchdown or two in the red zone with his legs, which can make him optimal even as just a naked type of quarterback. Drew Lock, we've already talked about his struggles there. I don't have him nearly struggling as much this week as we've seen in years past, particularly in the last month or so. But Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs team, they're going to get out to a big lead, so you could see a ton of usage in garbage time. Moving on to the running backs here, Ezekiel Elliott at the top of the board is going to garner a ton of ownership here, but not really somebody I'm looking to actively get leverage on. He's somebody who's been a lot lower usage this year because of Tony Pollard's emergence, and this is a relatively close spread here. It's not like we're expecting the Cowboys to go out and absolutely demolish this Eagles team, so in negative game scripts would be even less attractive. So for me, I see myself prioritizing a few more of these middle tier level players, also because he's the most expensive guy on the board there. Clyde Edwards-Helaire still down as questionable, was not able to suit up last week, is a little bit more promising this time around. As of right now, it should be noted, I have everyone listed as questionable projected as in. Obviously, 1, 2, maybe even 3 of these guys might get rolled out before game time, but we'll adjust to that when it happens. So if you guys are on the Patreon, you have access to these projections 24/7. When we get that type of news on Friday morning, Friday evening, it'll go ahead and be updated live. Javonte Williams is a great option if he's able to suit up for this Broncos team. He's definitely garnered the #1 role over this last month or so. He's been the more efficient of the two backs over there in Denver, over somebody like a Melvin Gordon III. Also been better as a PPR back. So Melvin Gordon, obviously getting up there in age. It's kind of funny to say, he's only right around 30 years old, but for a running back, that is absolutely ancient. So this is Javonte Williams' team going forward, and because they don't have the best chance to make the playoffs here, I do expect them to try and get him some work. It's the last game of the year, very likely not going to be playing until training camp next year. I really like him there at $6,100. Another guy I'm not really considering is Tony Pollard. Similar story with Ezekiel Elliott. He's not getting a ton of usage because he's in a timeshare. So anytime we have one of these 1-2 game slates, that kind of thing, really going to have to try and pick our spots. And anytime we have a timeshare, going to try and avoid that type of situation. He's also relatively expensive at $6,000. It's not like we're talking about him as a value play down here at near $4,000. Darrell Williams, if Clyde Edwards-Helaire were to sit, would become a play on the slate. Would be a no-brainer there at $5,900. Melvin Gordon III, not a priority for me. I do expect Javonte Williams to get a lot more usage there. Boston Scott, Jordan Howard, and Kenneth Gainwell. So one of these guys is going to be the play of the slate. You had Boston Scott and Jordan Howard added to the COVID list on Monday. That does mean that they could be activated for Saturday. Actually likely to be activated for Saturday. Just have to not have fever-like symptoms. Can't be coughing, hacking up, that kind of thing. But as long as they're somewhat healthy going up to Saturday, I do expect both of them to suit up. If only one of them's active, even better. But if they're both active, both interesting looks in GPP type of options. And if both, for some reason, do not end up being active, Kenneth Gainwell would be some insane value down there at $4,100. He would go from right around a 5-point projection to right around a 13.5-point projection, which again would make him the highest points per dollar play on the entire slate. Let's move on to wide receiver now. This is where I'm going to try and spend up a lot of my money. You can see I was fading Ezekiel Elliott. Guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire that are a little bit more expensive. It's not like I'm trying to get a ton of leverage there. At wide receiver, though, because of some of these top-end stacks, definitely going to be a priority. So first and foremost, Tyreek Hill, a great option with Patrick Mahomes. I like using him in those type of stacks. But even if I'm going after a Cowboys stack, love trying to squeeze Tyreek Hill into some of those lineups as well. He has some really high upside. And because he has such a concentrated role on that Chiefs offense, there's a lot of circumstances where he's the only wide receiver that goes off for them, right? Patrick Mahomes might have 2 touchdowns, 300 yards, and both of those that Tyreek Hill. So really like him here, whether it's in a stack or on his own. CeeDee Lamb, he's going to be my #2 stacking option for this Cowboys team. Amari Cooper's definitely gotten a lot more targets over the season, pretty much has gone up every single week. And over these last 2 weeks, has seen over 10 targets, which you love to see, especially in a PPR type of format here. You see a drastic difference in ownership as well. So I'm going to have both of them in my player pool. But Amari Cooper, I'm looking at getting around 70% ownership. Same thing on a CeeDee Lamb there. But you can see that's nearly 30% leverage on somebody like Amari Cooper as opposed to just over the field for CeeDee Lamb. Some of these mid-tier wide receivers, not really as attractive in my book. Somebody like a Devonta Smith, he's a little bit overpriced. So I'm going to be avoiding him. Can't play everybody on this 2-game slate. Jerry Jeudy is an appropriate buyback option. Same thing with Cortland Sutton for some of those Chiefs stacks. Not going to fly off the board in terms of their projection. You can see projection for 2.5x value, which is just about appropriate for somebody in this mid-tier range. Tim Patrick, if you're playing 150 max, could use him as a buyback, but at least for me right now, not going to be a priority. In terms of some of these value wide receivers at $4,000 or less, first and foremost, Byron Pringle should be a huge factor in your Chiefs stacks. Not only does he give you that much needed salary flexibility, but somebody who has seen a target share increase over the last month or so. He's the best blocker that they have on that team. So as a result, he's a ton of snaps. So even if he's not getting the ball, going to be on the field, which is going to add some extra upside. Mecole Hardman, he's kind of been the one man out, the lone man out here. He was getting a lot more snaps towards the beginning of the year, and even though he's seen that number fall as we've gone closer towards the end, he's still one of their top 3 wide receivers. And when you have Patrick Mahomes throwing to you, that's going to give you a lot of inherent upside. So if you're not going to Byron Pringle as a value option for your Chiefs stacks, could very well look Mecole Hardman's way. Demarcus Robinson, not really somebody I'm taking a look at. He scored a touchdown over the last few weeks. A little bit of an outlier. He's really their number 4 wide receiver. Somebody I'd be willing to punt on would be Jalen Reagor. So he's there at $3,000. At least he snaps for this Eagles team. And in terms of PPR upside, gives you a little bit more usage than somebody like a Quez Watkins. So like I'm down there at $3,000. Quez Watkins, you can see at $3,800. Projects for rate in that same range of points, but really like that flexibility down there at $3,000. Let's move on to the tight ends, and of course, the defenses to wrap it all up. My favorite position at tight end here, though, not that much to speak of. There's 3 tight ends that I think that are worth rostering, and maybe a 4th in Noah Fant. But outside of that, these middle tier options, you're going to be taking in most of your lineups, right? Because of some of these more expensive stacks, Patrick Mahomes to Tyreek Hill, even going to something like a Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, you're not really going to be able to afford a Travis Kelce. If you're able to fit in Travis Kelce, maybe you take an extra value play or something like that, go ahead and do so. I mean, he's going to project higher than a lot of these other guys, but in terms of points per dollar, you're getting a very similar play down here at $5,000. Excuse me, sorry about that. Noah Fant, he might play, he might not play. He's one of these guys who's questionable, who I've projected is in right now. So make sure you guys keep an eye on that by the end of the week. He been able to tough it out at certain points this year, so I do expect him to be able to suit it up. And it's a similar story with Dallas Goedert with COVID as what we had with those running backs. He tested positive on Monday, so he definitely has a chance to suit up on Saturday. So make sure to keep an eye on all of that. At defenses, it's the same 2 defenses with those quarterbacks I'm targeting, right? The teams that are expected to go out and win these games, they have a huge incentive to go out and do so. Those are the sides of defense I'm looking to target. They are slightly more expensive than some of these other options, but they're much less expensive than most defenses would be. I mean, usually the most expensive defense is right around $4,500, sometimes even $5,000, and we're talking about it there at $3,100. So you're still getting plenty of salary flexibility. If you need that extra $500, I'd be willing to take the Eagles defense as well. They have a very solid unit, very solid front seven, generate turnovers, have scored some defensive touchdowns. So it might be worth a few looks in some of those large field GPPs. That's all I've got for the Saturday slate preview. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments who your favorite 3-man stack is for this week. Maybe it's going to that Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Byron Pringle stack, or maybe it's a Cowboys stack. Whatever it is, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. I would love to hear from you guys. And if you guys haven't already liked and subscribed, make sure you guys go ahead and do so as well. Liking the video lets us know that you like the content that's coming out. It also makes sure that other people are able to see this type of content. The YouTube algorithm is able to spit it out a little bit more. And of course, subscribing, even more so important. That way you guys don't miss any of the content I'm posting in the future, whether it's for golf, NFL, the main slate, we got plenty of content coming for that, or of course NBA, MMA, all of that coming in the future. So make sure to subscribe so you catch all of that going forward. Good luck with all of your lineups for this Saturday, and let's get this cash.